Okay, this is going to be a little tutorial on how to basically heat a figure to reform its basically the way it stands. And for this example, I have an HSCF bootleg of Gogeta, and basically he's kind of in a stupid pose. I don't think the legitimate figure is actually in a pose like this. I'm going to try spreading his legs out, and I'll actually try actually making him look up. I doubt that'll work, but for the legs, surely we can do better than this weird pose. So basically what I do is I'm going to boil some water. This is about 1.5 cups. It's over 1.5 cups, so I'm probably going to microwave it for about 4 minutes. And the only supplies you'll need is a glass measuring cup, a towel to work on, some tongs to pull the figure out if you can't simply pull it out with your fingers, and we may use some clothespins or screwdrivers to kind of spread the legs out, get them into the pose we want. So let's do this. For 1 cup I typically microwave for 2 minutes. For 2 cups I typically microwave for approximately 5 minutes. And even if you don't see it boil, the water's going to be hot. It's better just to base it off of time. Sometimes super boiled water, I believe that's what it's called, will actually not look like it's boiling, but when you take it out and you set it on something or you drop something in it, it will kind of explode in a way. It's more of a release of energy, and it'll splash you, and it's really not that big of a threat, to be honest. As long as you just put the figure in gently and or quickly and get your hand away, you're fine. I usually just kind of toss them in. Okay, so the water's boiling. We are ready to get started. As you can tell, it's very active. This is probably the correct situation for what is actually going to be a little bit of a super boiling. Yeah. So that's what happens. You get away from it quickly and you don't get burned. It's not a big deal. Okay, so anyway, when you're doing a modification like this, it's not just a head removal or something. You're going to want to make sure that this figure, what you're going to modify, is about as loose as it can get. And I don't really ever time myself. I just sort of do whatever and come back and pull it out and reshape it. As you can tell, once you take it out of the microwave and remove the heat source, it's not going to show that it's boiling anymore, but this water is extremely hot. With a production figure, you usually won't have any sort of paint loss. The only time I've ever had paint loss was when it was a bootleg figure that was really old bootleg, and it was made of really hard plastic. Total piece of crap that smelled horrible. Of course, a custom figure will also lose paint because, you know, it's not a production paint job. Alright, that's probably enough. Let's see if I can prop this up. Alright, I don't have gloves, I don't need the tongs, I could reach his head. It's extremely hot, even the parts that I'm not touching. I'm going to go ahead and blot it off. Normally I would be wearing gloves for this, but of course I'm filming a video and didn't bring them down here. So as you can see, it's very flexible. You can do whatever you want. If you kept it in this position, depending on the type of plastic, it would actually stay in this position. You can tell that the waist actually isn't glued on this bootleg particularly well. And so now if I was going to modify the head, you know, I didn't actually have this in the water. I'll probably end up removing the head, but as you can tell, it's already kind of heated up anyway, just from being close to the hot water. So I can move the head quite a bit. That's going to remove it. There we go. That's close enough, actually. That's about where I want it. And so as you can tell, it's going to go back. Plastic has a memory, so it's going to go back to its original mold, typically, if it was something that occurred as a result of being stored poorly or something like that. See, a clothespin, not going to work on this figure. Screwdriver, maybe. Basically, you just want to stick something in there that's going to keep the legs as far apart as you want them. In this case, these feet aren't part of the same mold as the pants. So I can actually adjust them. I didn't know that, to be honest. That's kind of nice. And now, that actually looks about like how I want him. This figure was great for this demonstration. I didn't expect it to be so easy. So anyway, here's our options. You can either leave it on the countertop, wait for it to naturally cool down to a normal temperature. If you're impatient, you can actually set the figure in the sink. I have a plate in there right now, but I might as well just demo it. You can set the figure in the sink, run cold water on it for several, maybe a minute, and that'll solidify the plastic back to its normal state. Or you can just stick them in the freezer, which is what I'm going to do. Alright, so in the freezer, and you just close it, let them stay in there for, I don't know, however long you want. Doesn't matter. A couple minutes, a couple hours, a couple days. Doesn't really matter. As long as he's cooled down to the touch, you know he is going to most likely keep this position. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes or so. I got impatient, took it out just so I could finish this video. Basically, it's going to hold the position, and you shouldn't have any issues. I'm going to go ahead and put it back in the freezer just so it'll stay for sure. Okay, it's been another 5 minutes or something. It's good to go.